look at that.
Nice to see you, Tom.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. You look like you're in 1878 or something.
That's good. That's good. I started off in 1850, so I'm moving with the times.
And I love in the black on black.
You get the black on black, and then you do, you can do that, and then you just become a wee head, or you can. I've got these films that I'm working on, so you can do stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And then it's what exists behind the black screen, but pay no attention to the man behind the black screen. I quite like this one. So yeah. Wow. And then I had considered doing this. I use this to my. This is the way I start my lecture on musical identities. Start the interview kind of like this, and we talk about identities being multiple and constantly.
Oh, wow!
And it's cheap theatrics, Tom. My I've gone from unlistenable music nobody likes to cheap theatrics. Nobody likes.
Well, I don't think cheap theatrics is a new thing, Raymond. Is it? Like,
damn! This is how I spend my days now. Lecturing and creating new work that I pretend's conceptually marvellous, but it's really
it's kind of like a low budget remake of the second Matrix film where Neo fights 75 music professors.
I was going to say, if Shrek was the Keanu Reeves character, yeah.
You're the people from the Matrix. I can't remember their name now.
All right, yeah. I guess so. I've got the black.
I'm Keanu Reeves, mate.
Sorry, Tom. Yeah, you're right.
No, I need to welcome you to interview number 21.
Thank you very much.
And,
I'm delighted. Actually, here I've got a wee whiskey, so I'm delighted to be part.
Good for you. Yeah, most people that I'm interviewing have been at the screen that I'm talking to mostly for the last year. But I mean, what I'm interested to know is there's definitely some things that I've had to do via Zoom and other things that even when things open up, I'm going to continue to do them like that because it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
What things are you going to continue doing like this?
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, Tom. And I'm going to continue being creative on Zoom because for me, when lockdown started, I think like many of us, how can we be creative? How can we sustain our community? How can we work? And quite quickly I realised actually playing my saxophone in the way that I would normally play my saxophone with the people I would normally play with just wasn't happening. But rather than say, I'm going to stop doing creative stuff, I kind of found a new way to be creative. The Glasgow Improvisers Orchestra, with George, we got on Zoom. But we started working in different ways, so maybe not, I've been using lots of other instruments and finding different ways of making sounds, using visuals a lot, so integrating the sounds that I've been using with virtual backgrounds. I've set up 2 or 3 collaborations with people that I've never met before.
There's something about doing things remotely that's kind of exciting in the sense that it's really new.
Yeah. I think that's the point. It's for me. It's found new ways to be creative, new ways to collaborate with people, new ways to merge musical ideas with visual ideas, with conceptual ideas, and it's been really, really exciting.
This is not improvised, but that is. Hello, welcome. This piece involves me reading out exactly what is written down. My name is Maria, and my dad Raymond is playing the saxophone, and my sister Eva is playing the piano. I didn't write any of this. It's all been written for me. Not only is this not improvised, but I really didn't want to do it. I agreed because my dad is paying me £50. He's paying Eva £50 too. And she certainly doesn't want to be doing this, but £50 for a free improvisation gig? I hear that's quite a lot of money for this type of malarkey.
Are you doing a lot of teaching as well? Because you're professor of music at Edinburgh.
Yeah, officially, I'm professor of music psychology and improvisation in the music school at Edinburgh.
Okay.
Just as much, if not more, teaching than ever, which once again, ironically, I've really enjoyed. One of my classes has got 150 students, so on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning, I go live and I do a 2-hour lecture on music psychology to 150 students.
Have you gone most of the last 9 months without wearing any trousers? That's what I heard. I heard that Raymond hasn't worn trousers since.
What? Tom, I didn't wear trousers very often anyway, you know. So
I know, but people could see that. It's different now, isn't it? I'm very interested in this combination of being an academic and an active musician. Do they sort of help each other completely? I mean, I can imagine there's lots of positives about it, or does one ever clash with the other, or do you find yourself torn between the two things in any way? How does it all kind of fit together?
No, that's a great question. I guess I've been really lucky, Tom, in the sense that for as long as when I started teaching, I was in a psychology department, and I guess two things were in some respects a little bit separate, but they kind of informed each other. But over the course of 20 years, they've just become completely merged, and I see them as just almost extensions of each other. When I'm teaching, there's a big performative element to teaching. I'm using the saxophone a lot. I'm talking about improvisation. And then a lot of times when I'm playing as well, the ideas that are coming up in my teaching and my research are present in my ideas. So I see them as really sort of interlocking and informing each other. It gets a bit busy and timetabling and whatnot.
You must get shit off somebody because you're doing so much stuff. I mean, there's got to be somebody going, Raymond, you've got to slow down. There's got to be somebody. Is there anybody?
That's the voice in my head, Tom, but, just ignore it.
Great. I mean, it's fantastic to watch you, how many different connections you have, and whenever I meet anybody, like literally whether it's to do with academic stuff or education or music, everybody always knows you. It's like, oh, I know Raymond. It's like going to the cave in the Patagonian desert and there'll be a guy there going, oh, I know Raymond. I made an album with him.
The Glasgow Improvisers Orchestra sessions, we've been doing sessions once, sometimes twice a week since the start of lockdown. But those sessions have produced a festival, but at the same time as producing a festival, just about to publish a paper, an academic paper, looking at the way in which these weekly sessions have helped sustain and enhance the community of musicians, and also the effect that being involved musically has had on people's self-concept and upon their moods and how they feel over the course of the pandemic. So
I spoke a bit to George about what you're doing. He explained it that you're embracing the way Zoom cuts people off and on and making that part of the dynamic.
That's really important. So I think for a lot of musicians, when we started wanting to work in lockdown, so the big issue was latency. But for us, we just let the latency become an emergent feature of the improvisation. Another thing that Zoom does is, so sometimes in these sessions we might have 40 musicians from around the world playing. Of course, Zoom thins out the sound really quite dramatically. I mean, you might only hear 5 or 6 musicians at any one time, but we also let that be an emergent feature of the music as well. So we're all kind of responding to what we hear.
We're kind of in this weird place because there was a whole period of understanding, developing how it all worked. And then latterly, I think I've realised I have no idea what's happening. Repeatedly, we are playing rhythmic groove-based music together and everyone's playing in sync, including people. We had a couple of sessions with people in the States. Initially, I thought, Player 1 is over here playing in time with the audio from Player 2. Mm-hmm. Now, the audio from Player 2 has a pulse, so they're playing in time with what they hear. Player 2's over here and playing in time with what they're hearing, but there should be, when you combine them, they're sort of they're in time, but they're displaced, and you can't predict how they sit together. So nobody quite knows whether they're playing where they think they're playing. Mm-hmm. I don't think that anymore, because now I'm hearing people play very definitely on a downbeat on 1. I'm thinking that person has to know that's 1.
No, because I watched it was Laura's concert and Jorrit's concert, and they were both beautiful concerts and very open, sort of, kind of free-ish. But at the same time, there was moments of really strong pulse and strong rhythm, and there was no sense of there being a latency or a glitch. And I think you're exactly right. I think that everybody's making these micro adjustments and just adapting to what they can hear and what's coming back, and it's working, and you're kind of settling into, there was really strong groove.
It's great to have a professor to ask questions to. So now, moving on to how to speak to my wife. Can you give me some advice?
Just drum, Tom. Drumming is the language of love, I'm told.
There was a period, because you've got 2 daughters, is that right?
I have, yes, I have.
And how old are they now?
Maria's 19 and Eva is 16.
Because I have a daughter, Sophie, who's now 26. Oh God, 28. Yeah. And there was a point where I was giving you teenage daughter advice, if you remember. You gave my number to one of your daughters because she was getting angry with your saxophone playing. That's what I remember.
Yes. No, I think I showed you that there was a famous morning where I was practicing my saxophone before I got the train through to Edinburgh. And she was in 5th year at school, so she was staying in bed quite late. And when I got on the train, I had these series of Facebook messages from her complaining about my saxophone playing. And I hadn't seen them till I got on the train, and she got very irate. And I showed them to you.
Were they during while you were playing? She was sending them.
Yeah. So there were things like, oh God, not multiphonics, Dad, please. And then who do you think you are? It's 8:30 in the morning.
And that's so Brotsman about 76. Do something new.
Yeah. But my memories are you phoned her up and said, actually, you're absolutely right. She was delighted that, your dad shouldn't be practicing the saxophone at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, Maria, I have to tell you, you're right. He shouldn't be playing saxophone at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's being very selfish, especially the multiphonics. And he's got to buck up his ideas. And if you need support, you call me and I'll phone him up and tell him any time in the morning that he's being an asshole. Okay? So just call me 1-800-ASSHOLE-CALL and I'll tell your dad to shut the fuck up. I can't remember. I think I was a little bit drunk at the time. And
actually, she says what she remembers is you were wearing a motorcycle helmet and you were the guy that called her on FaceTime with the motorcycle helmet on your head.
What?
Yeah, we were. I don't know how that happened, but she does.
I have no memory of the motorcycle helmet, which is a little bit worrying.
I might well have some. I think there's a recording somewhere of it.
Well, if you find it, send it to me, and I will edit it in at this point. This interview is going out during the interval of the Ian Bellamy gig. Oh, wow. We've just heard the first set. I just wondered what you thought of the first set.
Oh, it was fabulous, Tom.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Ian Bellamy, so
great.
It's great to hear him play again.
The final question is, how did you get into improvised music?
The first thing was that I was playing guitar in first generation indie bands, in the late 80s. We started touring, and then I sort of, by the time I got really into music, I had no music qualifications, so I was studying psychology but playing in a band. But actually, all I wanted to do was play music. I started playing jazz, playing Frank Zappa, Charlie Mingus, Weather Report, really, and not really knowing what I was doing as well. Yeah. I still don't know what I'm doing today.
Well, at what point did you get into the totally free improv? How did you get exposed to that?
Yeah, so I mean, I had a kind of natural affinity for it, I think, because even when I first started, I remember, my very first time improvising with a Thelonious Monk tune, Ruby My Dear. I was playing around the changes, but at some point I got a little bit lost, but I just kept going. And I thought, God, this is really exciting. I'm just trying to make this up and use my ears and go. So right from the start, I think I had an affinity with, sort of free improvising. But really, meeting George Burt sort of in the early mid-90s was a real defining moment, because when I met George, I met somebody who actually embraced playing free. And at that time, Lindsay Cooper, he was playing with Lindsay Cooper, George Lyle, Alan Pendry, Bill Wells was part of that sort of scene around George. So that really...
Those are all wonderful, wonderful people, all of them.
Yeah. And
in fact, they all played a significant role in my development as well, all of them. I was talking the other day about Lindsay Cooper because Joe brought through this beautiful manifesto about music, like a poem. It really made me think about Lindsay for a while, and he was one of the most pure free improvisers I ever played with. And I remember once doing a gig with him in a pub in Glasgow, and there was this laser thing for vodka.
It was subliminal. I remember those.
Yeah. It was a sort of subliminal flashing thing.
Yeah, it would say absolute, and you go, what was that? What was that? Yeah.
And he did this solo where he just completely went off on this thing about this vodka. That was just stunning. It was like what was incredible about Lindsay was that he also was a total Dixieland mainstream bass player, and played tuba and everything else. And he worked with all these Dixieland players who would have run a mile if they'd heard any free improv. So he had this incredibly broad range. And at his funeral, they played, I think Fiona sang and Forey Keynes played something. But there was no free improv. And there was a bit of me thinking, Lindsay just wants a couple of us to get up and do something really out to lunch, which would have outraged... It would have outraged at least 3/4 of the people there.
I remember, so as I said, I used to go and play, once a week with Lindsay at George's, and it was all free. And each week each of us would maybe contribute an idea. I got a project it was a reminiscence project in a care home. We got to the tea dance, and Lindsay was calling. He wanted, he knew all these tunes.
Yes.
And actually, I was kind of struggling. I remember him shouting at me. He goes, "Raymond, you're a caution. And he would play through all these tunes. I was like, Lindsay, I thought we were going to play Colonel Bogey for 15 minutes, and then that was it. But
he was just so diverse. Well, listen, it's really great to talk about all these people. We could do it for hours, but
I love it.
It's great to see you, and I'm looking forward to next week.
Excellent.
But anyway, Raymond MacDonald, thank you so much. I love you, a beautiful man.
I'm looking forward to next week.
We'll see you next week.